Good afternoon. I am Councillor Julie Grace, Chair of Council. I would like to welcome you all to the first full Council meeting of 2025 and a Happy New Year. Before I start the meeting, I would like you to remain standing as we observe a minute's silence as a mark of respect for former councillors Roger Luffman and John Hoare and the former civic chaplain Reverend Canon Christopher Smith, who have recently passed away. Roger Luffman was a councillor in the early 1980s in the former Richmond ward and sadly passed away in November after a period of illness. John Hoare passed away on the 11th of December 2024. He was an elected member from 1996 to 2004, representing the Southern Parks and Central wards, and held the position of Chair of the Planning Committee before taking on the role of Cabinet Member from 2002 to 2004. He also served as a co-opted member on Schools, Children and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny Panel, once he had stepped down from his position as an elected member. Reverend Canon Christopher Smith passed away on Saturday, the 11th of January 2025. Canon Smith was the former vicar of Doncaster Minster and the civic mayor's chaplain from 2002 to 2010. Our condolences and thoughts go out to all their family and friends. Please remain standing while we pay our respects. Thank you. Please be seated. We're not expecting a fire practice, but in the event of hearing the fire alarm, please leave the chamber and turn right, proceeding down the stairway and throughout the emergency exit on the ground floor. The assembly point is in the public square in front of CASP beyond the fountain. Anybody with mobility issues should wait in the refuge area near the lift and use the intercom to call for assistance. This meeting will be recorded and published on the Council's YouTube channel. By entering the Council chamber, you are accepting that you will be recorded and your images will be retained and broadcast by the Council. If any member of the public or press are intending to record or film any part of today's meeting, please ensure this does not disturb the proceedings. Can everyone ensure their mobile phones are switched to silent mode, please? Right, item 1, apologies for absence. I've received apologies for absence from Councillors Joe Blackham, Rachel Blake, Nigel Cannings, Gary Stapleton and Austin White. Are there any more apologies for absence lately? Thank you.
Andy Pickering.
Councillor Yetunde.
John, did you have your hand up? Item 2, to consider if the press and public are to be excluded from the meeting. There is no exemptions on the agenda today, is that right still? Right, thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare an interest in any item on today's agenda? If you do, if you can see Jonathan. Right. Item 4, minutes of the council meeting held on the 21st of November 2024. All these minutes are true and accurate record. Right, thank you. Item 5, announcements. Right. I would like to announce the fantastic achievements of 4 of our Doncaster residents who have recently been honoured in the King's New Year's Honours list. Catherine Kelly has been awarded an MBE for the services to education. Eileen Lindley has been awarded an MBE for the services to foster care. Richard Ailey has been awarded a BAM for services to the post office and to the community in Doncaster. Prashanti Navaratnam has been awarded the BME for public, voluntary and charitable services. I hope you will all join me in congratulating these individuals for all their hard work and receiving the recognition for their services and achievements. Mayor Jones, do you have announcements?
I do, Chair, and I ask if it takes a little longer, you'll allow me the extension, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. My announcement is in respect of the airport. Reopening our airport remains my #1 priority. I want to confirm to Council and the people of Doncaster that we have an international airport operator ready and waiting in the wings to work with us. Yesterday, the Government Subsidy Advice Unit published their report on the proposed subsidy to Fly Doncaster. Fly Doncaster is a wholly owned company of this council, which has been established to manage the airport and partner with our international airport operator. Its key international role is to mobilise the opening of the airport for passenger flights in spring 2026. Further details in relation to this will be included in the reports to go through the council decision-making process in the next weeks ahead. The overall tone of the subsidy report is a positive one and acknowledges that this council has considered the options and why public funding is an appropriate mechanism to consider. There are a number of points raised for further consideration, and these will be responded to as part of our ongoing process. This is set to be the largest single investment in Doncaster for more than a generation, hence the considerable level of due diligence and our rigorous and logical approach to accomplish this monumental challenge of saving and reopening our airport. This is a Team Doncaster and Team South Yorkshire effort. I would like to thank the residents and businesses of Doncaster for their patience. We are not over the line yet, but we are nearly there. The Subsidy Advice Unit report yesterday is another key milestone we have completed. The next stage is my budget proposal and approval to draw down gain share funding from South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority, which are scheduled to go through the decision-making process over the coming weeks, culminating at full council on the 27th of February that seeks budget approval. To conclude, we have an international airport operator ready. This is the operator that made it through to the end of the procurement process. And although we did not gain private sector investment as originally planned, we have reached a deal which means that this council will wholly own the company that will partner with our international operator. Doncaster Airport is the people's airport, with a special place in the heart of many. I want to emphasise to our people, this is an investment in you and your future and your family's future. It is an investment in our economy. It is an investment in our businesses. It is an investment in our jobs and skills. That will increase trade, export and growth for Doncaster and South Yorkshire through global connectivity, putting Doncaster on the map regionally, nationally and internationally. That is why reopening our airport remains my #1 priority. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Glyn Jones, I understand you've got no announcement today, have you?
I have no announcements, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, has any other members of the Cabinet? I understand Councillor Holbrook's got an announcement. Is there any other Cabinet members with announcements? Right, Councillor Holbrook, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to give an introduction to the Doncaster Tree Challenge. In April 2021, Doncaster Mayor Ros Jones announced an ambitious target for Doncaster to plant 1 million trees across Doncaster over the next 10 years. One of a number of initiatives to respond to the climate change and biodiversity emergency. The ultimate aim is to increase tree coverage across the borough from 13% to 70% by planting more trees in urban areas, community spaces, town centres, gateway green areas and woodlands. The council is working with schools, private sector businesses, parish councils, partners, landowners and volunteer organisations, along with the people of Doncaster to increase the number of trees planted and maintained across the borough. In delivering the programme, the Sustainability Unit has employed a Trees and Woodlands Development Officer, and the Trees and Woodlands Engagement Officer has been funded from the Forestry Commission's Woodland Creation Acceleration Fund. The Sustainability Unit has been able to draw in a wide range of external funding, including Woodland Trust Grow Back Greener, Local Authority Treescapes, Tree Council, Coronation Living Heritage Fund, Simca, Trees for Cities, and Urban Tree Challenge. The Woodlands Trust Local Authority Emergency Trees Fund has financed the countryside and woodland ranger and 2 young tree maintenance officers in street scene. The council's land assets have been assessed for all tree planting opportunities, amongst other competing priorities. Extensive programmes have been undertaken with schools, and there has been an ongoing outreach to communities and private landowners. The council has helped establish and work closely with the South Yorkshire Woodland Partnership. Other partners have included the Woodland Trust, Forestry Commission, Simca, Tree Councillor, elected ward members, Brownies, Kids Plant Trees, Smile, town parish councils and businesses including Cinetech and Amazon. In 2024, we was awarded a Tree City of the World status as part of the United Nations programme in recognition of our tree planting achievements. We're also one of the leading areas for the planting of tiny forests, having planted 20 tiny forest intensive planting schemes in Doncaster school grounds, with another 10 planned for this season. The challenge. Planting the tree in the right place at the right time is indeed a challenge, requiring project management for site identification and assessment, procurement of supplies, community consultation, coordination of planting events, monitoring and reporting back to funding bodies, and much, much more. Trees need planting with care and need maintenance to ensure that the maximum number will survive and become established. Not all trees will thrive, not all the sites are suitable for tree planting, and the season for planting is limited to November to March over winter. Finally, where are we now? Since setting the 1 million trees target, a total of 333,686 trees have been planted and 247,030 tree seeds have also been planted. We're making fantastic progress, but there's a long way to go to reach the million tree target. We're improving open green space, creating woodlands and treescape for current and future generations. Working in partnership with residents, businesses and landowners in Doncaster, we are determined to meet that challenge. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6 is questions from the public. We have 3 questions from members of the public. Mrs Christine Lunny, Mr Tim Brown and Mr Riesbeck. Right. For your information, I shall read out the questions individually and allow Mayor Jones to respond to each one. You will be given an opportunity to make a supplementary question following the Mayor Jones's response. Any supplementary question must relate to the answer given or the original question. You have a maximum of 2 minutes to put your supplementary question. I'm going to begin with reading out the first question from Mrs Lunny. Within the City of Doncaster Council's Health and Wellbeing Strategy 2024 to 2030, it states on page 15, adding years to life and life to years, and that it wants to improve the experience of ageing. However, how can this realistically be achieved when many of Doncaster's older residents are now suffering a cold and potentially fatal winter by having their winter fuel allowance cut? What will the council commit to do in support of them and adhere to the adding years to life and life to years pledge and increase their life expectancy? Mayor Jones, would you like to respond?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Chair. And thank you for your question, Mrs. Lunny. Our Director of Public Health will be introducing her annual public health report for Doncaster later in the meeting. I would encourage you to listen to what she has to say about the health and well-being of all Doncaster residents. Health and well-being is influenced by a complex web of factors extending far beyond the provision of healthcare services. The wider determinants of health, social, economic and environmental conditions profoundly shape the health outcomes of our communities. Our health and wellbeing strategy is not just about increasing life expectancy, it's about also improving the quality of life. City of Doncaster Council is a caring and kind council, providing support to our residents when they need it, whether this be through the Household Support Fund, local council tax reduction scheme, discretionary housing payments or local assistance scheme. In terms of the latest round of household support funding, over 24,000 households across Doncaster have so far been supported, including £150 per pensioners in need who do not receive the winter fuel payment. As a council, we already commit work with local partners and charities such as St Ledger Homes, Age UK and Citizens Advice to assist residents with navigating the benefits process and to ensure they are able to access any benefits or grants they are entitled to. Thank you for your question, Christine.
I understand Mrs. Lunny is in the chamber. Would you like to ask a supplementary question? Thank you.
Okay. Where are you? Oh, there we are. Hi, Mayor Jones. Given that you've mentioned that there's a complex web of, factors influencing the health and wellbeing strategy, what measures does the council have to review and potentially amend the strategy with regards to emerging outside influences, if you like, such as the energy crisis? How can you review and adapt the strategy being influenced by external, social, economic and so on, external influences? Thank you very much.
Would you like to respond, Mayor Jones?
Our strategies always go through Team Doncaster, so it's all different disciplines that actually contribute to that. But I'm also seeing our Director of Public Health actually wanting to expand on this further. So with your benefit, I'll pass it over to her.
Thank you. So our health and wellbeing strategy was published last year, went through a process with our Team Doncaster partners and through consultation with the public to develop our 3 focus areas. So they are improving the experience of ageing, narrowing the health gap for children and young people, and creating healthy places to live, grow and play. We've had some LGA, so LGA are an organisation that support councils, input around developing our strategy, but also how we work as a health and wellbeing board. Your specific question about how strategies adapt, so health and wellbeing strategy is one of a suite of strategies that the council have and hold. For each of those 3 priority areas, we've defined what we can do as a health and wellbeing board, what we can do as that partnership to deliver and to improve. Of course, things will change all the time. Situations we've seen and we've rapidly adapted as a public health team, the war in Ukraine being an example, being able to quickly support new people coming to the UK. The strategy is one thing that guides our work, but we'll continue to work as a public health team with and across Team Doncaster as well. Other things that are available for support, we have a comprehensive boiler on prescription programme. We will always respond using the data and intelligence and the evidence that we've got to best support the population of Doncaster within the resources that we've got. The strategy will remain as it is currently, but the work that we do as a health and wellbeing board will evolve through that period of the strategy. Thanks.
Right, thank you, Mrs. Lunny. Thank you for your question. Thanks, Rachel. I will now read the question from Mr. Brown. Mayor Jones, I have respectfully informed you over many years that your "I do not see colour" comment is offensive and associated with a systematic racism that is clearly documented within the Professor Gus John report and the systematic racism acknowledgement made at full council meeting on 19th of September 2024. Can you explain why you find it difficult to acknowledge that your comment and indifference to my racism concerns are offensive and at best a form of benevolent racism, and what practical actions you have taken to help tackle systematic racism and racial inequalities during your time as Mayor? Mayor Jones, would you wish to respond?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question, Mr. Brown. Let me be perfectly clear. I find all racism abhorrent. As Mayor of Doncaster, I have and continue to champion all residents within Doncaster, celebrating our diverse cultural heritage and the incredible people that make Doncaster the great place that it is. Some of the actions of this council to tackle racism include anti-racism seminars with over 100 leaders and managers of Doncaster's organisations in attendance, covering a number of key areas. Reciprocal mentoring programme, inclusion and fairness forum, ethnic and culture fusion, Doncaster Fairness and Wellbeing Commission, a comprehensive review of EDI objectives in accordance with the wider public sector equality duty, marking Black History Month and Windrush, supporting equalities in the workplace through staff networks. This council will continue to do all we can to tackle racism. I understand that you've been invited and encouraged to positively participate and engage with a range of EDI activity groups, including, for example, Minorities Partnership and Inclusion and Fairness Forum. But as yet, you have declined.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. Mr. Brown's not in the chamber today, so can we ensure that he gets Mayor Jones's response in writing, please? All right. Moving on to Mr. Riesbeck's question. I will now read out the question from Mr. Riesbeck. For years now, the streets and alleyways of villages such as my own in Exthorpe have been disgraced by litterers and fly tippers, to the point where it is at times impossible to get down many of the alleyways. Given that the current strategies of the council to counteract these criminals are self-evidently failing, are there any new ideas or strategies to defeat this blight that affects thousands of local people? Mayor Jones, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for your question, Mr. Riesbeck. There are some alleyways in Exthorpe that remain a challenge. However, we are making progress, with council officers working tirelessly, speaking to residents, being visible in the area, cleansing it, gathering quality evidence, dealing with landlords, educating, supporting and enforcing. Let me be clear, any littering or fly tipping is environmental vandalism. This new government have pledged to bring forward new legislation which would make fly tippers clean up the mess that they have created. Just last week, our officers were out in Exthorpe on a street which has been a repeat offender. What they found on arrival was a waste-free, bin-free alley, and this was the day before refuse collection. This is as a result of considerable work of council officers who do an incredible job. Yes, there is still work to do, and that is why Exthorpe is one of our regenerative neighbourhoods, with those focused on resources to educate, support and enforce. I would like to pay tribute to those residents and volunteers who contribute their time, energy and dedication in order to help in places like Exthorpe, such as Friends of Exthorpe Flats Park, and those groups who carry out similar great work, including community litter picks across our city of Doncaster. Thank you.
I understand Mr Beesbeck's in the chamber. Would you like to ask a supplementary question?
I agree that there's much more work to be done. In fact, the crime rate in Hexthorpe and Bulby North is higher than in most places in Doncaster. It's 3 times the national average, being 269.68 per 1,000 people, mainly consisting of shoplifting, antisocial behaviour and violence and sexual offences. We've all seen the social media posts of you out here with police on action days. Is there any chance we'll see more action days, or indeed more of a police presence in Doncaster, or in fact Hexthorpe and Bulby North?
Mayor Jones, would you like to respond?
We will continue to work in partnership with the police in order to make our place better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Beesbeck, for your question. Moving on to item 7, it's the 2024 Director of Public Health Annual Report for Doncaster. I will ask Director of Public Health, Rachel Leslie, to introduce this report. Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. Directors of Public Health have a duty to publish an independent annual report on the health of their population each year. This year's DPH annual report focuses on the research approaches to improving health and well-being and to reducing health inequalities. Following a competitive process, Doncaster became one of the first health determinants research collaborations in the UK in 2022. HDRC Doncaster brings investment to develop research infrastructure over a 5-year period. We are currently in the 2nd year. I wanted to take the opportunity this year to use my report to demonstrate the approach that we've taken in Doncaster using this HDRC funding. Some of the products, and those of you that have attended earlier will see that we've managed to put up some of the posters that have been created with the support of HDRC today, so do take your time to have a look round at those later. Some of the capabilities that have been developed in and with teams, and some of the wider determinants both to council teams and staff and to our residents. Health determinants research collaborations are funded by the National Institute of Health and Care Research. Traditionally, there's been much investment in health into health services into the NHS. That includes investment in new technologies, new treatments and new medications. This new funding recognises that many of the determinants of health, the cause of causes, happen outside of the NHS, outside of health services, and many of those are the responsibility of local authorities. This investment enables the HDRC Doncaster to work as a catalyst alongside other Doncaster teams and functions to develop research skills, research abilities to improve the services that they run and affect those wider determinants of health. So including that capability and capacity, and hopefully that you'll see through the report today and in the posters today, that it's enabled teams to use evidence and apply evidence in the way that they work around those wider determinants of health. It's enabled teams to consider how they work more relationally with our communities, to understand what really matters to them and to improve the practice that they work in. It's also enabled us to develop better skills around some of the newer technologies, particularly around data and data science, and I've included a section in the report around that too. HDRC Doncaster is one of our key parts in health in all policies. As always, there is a data section in the report, and this year's data section focuses on the wider determinants of health. I've mentioned earlier that we published a new health and wellbeing strategy for Doncaster last year, and that includes one of our priorities to create healthy places to live, grow and play. In the summary data from today, I've told you about how we work around the built and natural environment, how important parks and green spaces are to people's health and well-being. I've talked about how we use our licensing mechanisms to try and reduce the concentration of hot food takeaways and other more harmful retail type establishments in some of our neighbourhoods. We've also demonstrated the importance of employment and skills in people's opportunities, and there's a poster as well around Doncaster's Fairness and Wellbeing Commission. Looking a bit later into the report, there is a whole section on how the HDRC has been established in Doncaster. And I do encourage you, if you've not had the chance yet, to use the online version. There's lots of clickable content and additional videos to explore through that section. As part of that, the 6 building blocks are presented about how the HDRC has been developed, how they've decided what to focus on and what capabilities have been brought about, and also some summary of the differences that have been made through some of those case studies. As always in the report, I include a table of how the Public Health Ring Fence grant has been invested in the previous year. And that table includes our spend on our mandated services, those that we must commission for people in Doncaster, and where the rest of our spend has been used. In summary, there are 3 areas of recommendation. One around recognising the value that research approaches bring to Doncaster as an area, to our teams and to our communities. The second one about enabling staff to have protected time to be research curious and research active in their roles, and the benefits that that brings as well around staff retention and staff satisfaction in the roles that they're in. And finally, those of you that have kept up to date with the health and wellbeing strategy, my third recommendation mirrors our priority to create healthy places to live, grow and play. Finally, I just want to thank the report contributors and the designers that have helped to develop quite a different looking DPH annual report for this year, so moving away from the template we've used previously. Again, do explore the online content of this year's DPH annual report and take some time to have a look at the posters that we've put up today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Nigel Ball, as portfolio holder for the Public Health, Communities, Leisure and Culture, I understand you wish to propose this report for approval by Council.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Research into wider determinants of health is a critical step towards improving public health outcomes. Doncaster HDRC will grow research capability and capacity throughout the city of Doncaster, and in those areas that teams that have the opportunity to positively affect the wider determinants of health. So this will be citywide. I want to thank our public health team and the partners that's enabled this research to take place for their ongoing commitment to this and the achievements over the last year certainly, and encourage continued research and curiosity in this area with the public health team and the wider council. I commend this report to full council, and I also commend the 3 recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councillor Ball. Do we have a seconder for this proposal? Councillor Smith.
I wish to second acceptance of the Public Health Annual Report. For anyone who hasn't already read this report prior to the meeting, I urge you to do so. This is a well-researched, evidence-based report for our city. Many things in this report jumped off the page, but the 2 important ones for me on page 7 talked about a compassionate approach to weight, health and food. Thank you. I commend this report unreservedly.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Is there anybody else wishing to speak on this report? No?
Yes, sorry.
Who are we pointing at? Oh, Councillor Bluff.
Thanks very much for the report. Can I ask a question? Is that all right? Yeah. Just in terms of the report, it's very well put together. But having read through it, especially on the sections about air quality, I don't get the feeling that it's really considering the conditions at which the residents of Hickleton are living in and the kind of impact on their lives, not just in air quality, but also noise pollution and the ability to just get out during the day. I don't know if you've ever visited the village, but on many occasions during daytime, it can take over 20 minutes to just cross the road. the village does have a large percentage of elderly residents, and it is the most polluted village. I believe it's still the most polluted village in Yorkshire, and it's getting worse with the increase of the developments in Barnsley. But at no point does this report make any reference to, or even any indication to, the air quality that we're suffering there, which is massively impacting the residents.
Can I just ask if there's any more questions before you respond? Is there anybody else wishing to ask a question? Right, okay, that's lovely. Do you want to respond, please?
Yes, so air quality important, both indoor and outdoor air quality important to overall health and well-being. Public Health, our wider determinants team, work with place teams, and there is an air quality management plans reported and published each year as well that Public Health have input to. The DPH annual report focuses on some of our public health approaches, so in there you'll have the school streets as an example and some campaigns that we've worked with communities as well. Importantly, your question gives me an opportunity to again demonstrate the real benefits that research and being a HDRC can bring to Doncaster. So one of our embedded researchers has managed to gain some additional funding for some different types of air quality monitors that can be used in households. We wouldn't have had that additional function for Doncaster if we'd not have had that research active community. So we've got one of our embedded researchers who's designing and posing a hypothesis similar to what you've described there to enable us to better understand what measures can be taken to protect residents in areas where there are poorer air quality. Thank you.
Councillor Ball, as you proposed the annual report, will you wish to exercise your right of reply to? Yeah, thank you. Right, the proposal that the 2024 Public Health Annual Report be noticed and published as being proposed and seconded. Is that all agreed? Agreed, Chair. Thank you. Item 8, Overview and Scrutiny Update, May to December 2024. I will now ask the Chair of Scrutiny, Councillor Jane Kidd, to introduce and propose this report. I understand some of the Scrutiny chairs may also wish to contribute to this. Can I remind you that you have up to 10 minutes in total to do this? Thank you. Councillor Jane Kidd.
Thank you. I'd like to formally propose this report to Council as a summary of some of the key work carried out by OSMC and the 4 standing panels between May and December last year. I'd like to start by thanking members, the executive, officers, partners, stakeholders and the public who have taken the time to attend meetings and engage with the overview and scrutiny process. There continues to be a real effort to focus on performance monitoring and review work through overview and scrutiny to ensure we consider how we add value to services and how effectively communities and residents are being supported. The report also highlights the engagement with key partners, stakeholders and the public, including those with lived experiences. This has helped scrutiny members better understand service delivery from the user's perspective. Outside of the formal meetings, the chairs and vice chairs meet regularly with the mayor and cabinet members to keep up to date with developments in portfolio areas and effectively plan and manage work plans. Some of the major items that are coming up for OSMC: pre-decision scrutiny of the mayor's budget, the corporate plan, South Yorkshire Airport City. So with your approval, Chair, thank you, I would like to ask the panel chairs to give a very brief overview of their work over the last 6 months.
Thank you. Yeah, who's speaking? Who wishes to speak? Councillor Glynis-Smith.
So following the JSNA report to overview and scrutiny, we actually made 2 site visits in October and November. The first one to Priory Place to Project 5. We met people using that service and staff working in that service, and this was prior to our scrutiny meeting on substance misuse on the 3rd of October. In November, we went out prior to the adult social care, Your Care and Support. We did a site visit to Positive Steps in Bentley, and we also met with a learning disability social work team. These visits gave us an opportunity to see new things work out there in Doncaster and made our scrutiny of services much more informed and insightful. We were able to ask, I believe, much better questions as a result of those site visits. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else wishing? Councillor Hanshaw?
Yes, thank you. As the report outlines, we had various meetings for children and young people throughout the year, but the standout ones for me were the eating disorders meeting, as we felt that the high numbers of referrals and the work done by the Youth Council needed exploring. The other one I would say was standout was the homeschooling meeting. The parents' statements were powerful, outlining that home education is not always as elective as sometimes assumed. The panel recommended that there should be new requirements for parents to inform the local authority and schools of reasons for homeschooling. And also the work experience meeting that we had just before Christmas. It was great to hear about all the work and opportunities that are being created in Doncaster. I'd like to thank governance officers Caroline and Christine, all the panel members, my Vice Chair, Councillor Needham, and a special thank you to our co-opted member representing the Diocese of Sheffield, Antoinette Drinkhill. Her knowledge, input and continued support have been unwavering and very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cobby?
Thank you, Chair. As usual, it's been another busy year for members within the Communities Environment Overview and Scrutiny panel. We started the year by deep diving into flooding with Yorkshire Water, the Environmental Agency and drainage boards, including Davon, Doncaster East and Black Drain, providing presentations to share their updates and ongoing concerns following the panel investigation after the severe floods in 2019. We discussed road safety with council departments, including enforcement and highways, along with South Yorkshire Police on topics including parking enforcement, road safety engineering, traffic management, road safety education and motoring offences. We received informal updates from services such as Street Scene and on the community asset and lettings, following this committee's deep dive into the community impact on Council Assets 2 years ago, along with a briefing on the waste and recycling contract from senior council officers. Next month we will be having the Crime and Disorder Committee as an annual update from South Yorkshire Police, the council and other partners, and also a further informal update on road maintenance from the council's highways team. A big thank you to the organisations and relevant council teams who have participated in the panel scrutiny programme this year, particularly to the member services team who organise and minute the meetings and the members of the panel.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Councillor Majid Khan.
Thank you, Chair. The Regeneration and Housing Panel scrutinised the local plan, its objectives, delivery and general performance of the plan. We looked at planning appeals, performance and levelling up in Doncaster North. Now, what came out of that was how joined up thinking can help to deliver more for the city. We asked MAM to attend and provide updates on the markets to ensure that we're holding MAM to account and so that our residents have a market that we can be proud of. I'm sure many of you have seen the refurbished Corn Exchange. We looked at the role of Doncaster City Council, primarily Business Doncaster, and partner organisations in increasing inward investment, creating an environment where businesses can prosper, and a city where highly skilled jobs are created. Chair, I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank Chris Dungworth, who's recently retired, for his work at Business Doncaster, and panel members for their attendance and all the other people who make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Bluff.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just a question on special educational needs. I don't know who is best to answer this, so I'll leave it open. So just...
Point of order, Chair.
Do you want me to let him continue? Yeah, do you wish to continue?
So just in the report, it mentions special educational needs. I just got a question on whether or not within the overview and scrutiny, is it not the point of this report to explain to all members here the extent of the budgetary pressures and also the fact that the deficit that special educational needs has run up is actually due to come to an end in this at the end of this financial year. I don't think that comes across in this report about what the potential impact could have, and the potential it could have to bankrupt the council.
Right, did you want Councillor Emshaw to answer it, or did you want to pass it on to the Cabinet member? Or
The purpose of this report isn't to detail what we've looked at. It's just an overview of the subject areas. But as far as the quarterly performance monitoring that we do, we ask questions about the budget. We ask questions about the pressures, which obviously includes special educational needs. So that's not the sort of detail you'll necessarily find in this report. But please have a look through the quarterly monitoring reports that are all recorded, the questions that we ask. Attend the children and young people's panel meetings, because that's the sort of thing they will look at as well. But this particular report, I don't think you'll find detail about that, but please do attend our quarterly performance management meetings.
can I bring Councillor Emshaw in on this, thanks?
I just wanted to add that if it was to bankrupt this council, it would also bankrupt every council in the country and in the UK. It's a national issue and a SEND crisis that we were left with from a Conservative government, I'm afraid.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on the report? Right, Councillor Kidd, would you want to exercise your right to reply?
I just want to extend my own personal thanks to Andrew Sercombe and his team for all the support that we get. We get absolutely fantastic support from them. Extend my thanks to the chairs of the panels for the highlights that they've just run through, because I know that is the tip of the iceberg, lots and lots of work that they do. And formally present the report for the Council's information. Thank you.
The Scrutiny Update report has been presented to Council. Is that noted? Thank you. Item 9, proposed diary of meetings 2025 to 2027. This report is being presented to full council to allow the Mayor of Doncaster and all elected members to be consulted on the provisional diary of meetings for the 2025 to 26 and 2026 to 27 municipal years prior to the formal adoption at the annual meeting of council in May 2025. Does any member wish to speak on this item? If any member wishes to speak on this item, please indicate by pressing your button on your console once. Is there a proposal to note that the final version of the diary meetings for 2025 to 2027 will be presented to the annual meeting of council in May 2025 for approval? Is that noted? Thank you. Item 10, motion proposed by Councillor Jane Cox and seconded by Councillor Nick Allen. Can I ask Councillor Jane Cox to introduce this item? Councillor Cox.
We've brought this motion today following on from the letter sent to all leaders of councils in January 2023 by Simon Hoare, following on from a recommendation from Simon Hoare. When speaking to residents, they believe elected councillors have some sort of DBS check and are always astonished that we don't. How many times are you invited into someone's home to look at something when you knock on the door? We're also all considered to be corporate parents and have responsibility to the children in our borough. The letter states, government strongly supports the recommendation and I urge an enhanced DBS check to be adopted as best practice for all councillors being considered for appointments to any committee that discharges education or social services functions. Such roles are eligible for enhanced DBS checks and it is within the power of relevant authorities to implement this best practice. My clear view is that there is reputational benefit in councils being both consistent and robust on adopting this best practice recommendation given the high profile of cases, rightly so, when things go wrong. I feel this statement sums everything up and I put it to council that all committees dealing with adults and children's social care have an enhanced DBS following the next election in May.
Thank you. Councillor Nick Allen is seconding the motion. Councillor Allen, would you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you. I have nothing further to add other than to thank Jane for asking me to second this. And I think the reasons for it are fairly obvious and self-explanatory.
Thank you. Is there any other member wishing to speak on this item? Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to put forward an amendment to the motion to the room today. Do they get handed out now to the room so colleagues can see? Yeah, so the amendments that we're putting forward, it adds clarity to the motion that you've put forward. It makes it relevant to Doncaster. And in our view, it also strengthens the motion as well. Has my mic gone off? Or is it still working? Yeah, lovely. I'll use this one, it's fine, Chair. So you've obviously took bits out of the recommendations and the report that were put forward. Just want to be absolutely clear that this council takes the safety and security of our children and vulnerable adults incredibly seriously. What we've made clearer in the amended motion is that the City of Doncaster Council is governed by a directly elected mayor and a cabinet. So it's not like a committee system that's referenced in the recommendation. So we've changed that round just so it's really clear. CDC already follows best practice by carrying out enhanced DBS checks for relevant cabinet members with responsibility for children's services, education, adult social care and public health as well. Jane mentioned corporate parenting board. We are all corporate parents. All of our corporate parenting board members have a DBS check as well. What this motion also doesn't take into account is that it's really important to note that the council is not the employer of elected members. So at this moment in time, the request for DBS checks can't be made mandatory under current government legislation. Therefore, you will see in the motion that what we're going to do is we're going to propose that the head of paid service investigates the legislative situation in relation to all CDC councillors undertaking a DBS check and for them to come back to full council in May. And it's our intention, because we agree with the values of the motion, but it's our intention that all councillors will be offered a DBS check and encouraged to have one in the new council term. So I hope you will agree that the amendments we've put forward make it relevant, it offers that clarity, and it's more than reasonable in response to what's been put forward. Thank you, Chair.
Does any member wish to second this amendment? Councillor Henshaw.
I'd like to second the amendment to the motion, as Doncaster doesn't operate under a committee system, but it is committed already to best practice.
Right, thank you. An amendment to the motion has been proposed and seconded. Does any member wish to comment further on this amendment?
Adjournment, please, while we go and figure out what it's not the easiest thing to sort out, if I'm honest.
All right. If we can come back at 3:05, I can't see it, clock 3:05, is that okay? Yeah, thank you. You ready? Yeah. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Where am I up to now then? Right, an amendment to the motion which has been circulated to all members and has been proposed and seconded. Before we vote on the amendment, can I ask Councillor Cock if she wishes to exercise the right of reply?
Do we not vote first?
Before we vote on the amendment, you don't want to speak on it before we move into a vote?
You want me to speak on the amendment?
Yeah, before we move into a vote.
I think as a group we've agreed with the amendment. I think we'll just be interested.
Sorry.
As a group we've agreed to the amendment. I just think we'd be interested to see what the head of service finds when he investigates the legislation for May.
This will seem slightly odd, but procedurally we'll vote on the amendment. That will then become the substantive motion, and then we'll vote on that as a substantive motion. I know that will seem quite strange because you vote on the same thing twice in succession, but that's the way we do it, just to explain that. So we're going to move now towards to voting on the amendment.
Right. Councillor Cole.
Sorry to be procedural. I get a bit confused about this because if the amendment is passed and it represents a substantial majority of the text on that page, surely the movers of the amendment become the owners of the substantive motion, not the original minions who put forward their version.
Unnecessarily, Councillor Cole, for that remark. Yeah. I did call him out.
I think we all accept the point that's been made, but I just like the reference to minions. We are council.
I don't know. When you was... I understand. Right, I did call him out. If you want to look back at the recording, I did call him out straight away for what he said. No, it is noted. Can I fetch you in on that, please?
I know, Councillor Cole, we have this conversation every time there's a motion and an amendment, but no, the rule is that the mover of the original motion always has the right to reply, because it remains Councillor Cox's motion, Councillor Jane Cox's motion. You've amended it, you've not replaced it. You have always the option of voting against the motion, which is the logic of why it remains originally Councillor Cox's motion, although I appreciate it's now been somewhat amended. And in relation to Councillor Jones's point, I think Chair's right. She admonished Councillor Cole for his misstep, and I think Councillor Cole has reflected that was unfortunate. So, do you want to move?
I want to move on to vote now, please, if you don't mind. Right, so we're going to vote on the amendment to the motion. So, can I remind members to not press your buttons until I've opened the vote, and please be aware that your vote will not count when the vote is closed. So please press either the green button to vote yes, or the red button to vote no, or the white button to abstain. I am now opening the vote. Please vote for the amendment on the motion. I am now closing the vote. So the amendment has been carried by 44 yeses. So now we're going to vote on the motion itself, the amended motion. Does anybody need to speak again? Does anybody wish to speak again? No? Right, so we'll go through to vote on the motion. Substantive. What's yours asking them?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can you repeat what we're going to be voting on next? For clarity.
The amendment to the motion is declared carried by 44 votes yes, 0 noes and 0 abstentions. This now becomes a substantive motion for further consideration. Are we happy with that? Sorry. Does any member wish to speak further on this motion? Okay. As there are no further requests to speak, I will offer Councillor Cox a right of reply before we vote on the substantive motion.
My colleagues have just asked me to ask that we're kept updated on how the report's going between now and May, because obviously some of them are retiring. Thank you.
Right, I'll bring Scott Focus in.
I anticipate, and not that the work's been assigned, but I anticipate that throughout the process that there'll be liaison with existing group leaders. Obviously, we are in a process towards an election, so members of this chamber may be different come May, but those that are in here until the point that we break for election, we'll liaise with group leaders, because I guess we're your representation of the people who are likely to be here in future. So if you understand it and agree it, and as has been pointed out by some, effectively the management of this will be done by group leaders, because there is no legal basis for preventing people currently doing it, because the legal position is lax. So it will be groups that will have to determine who they put forward to committees based upon the outcomes of DBSs, and that's what will be within the policy, I would imagine. So yes, we will keep you informed, or group leaders.
We will now move to vote on the substantive motion. Can I remind members to not press your buttons until I've opened the vote, and please be aware that your vote will not count when the vote has been closed. So please press either the green button to vote yes, the red button to vote no, or the white button to abstain. I am now opening the vote. I am now closing the vote. The motion has been declared. It's been carried by 44 yes to 0 abstentions and 0 no votes. Thank you. Get rid of that. Item 11, we have 5 questions on notice today, so it's questions by elected members. With 4 questions being to Mayor of Doncaster Rog Jones from Councillors Nick Allen, Jane Cox, Steve Cox and Laura Bluff, and 1 question to Councillor Joe Blackham, Cabinet Member for Highways, Infrastructure and Enforcement from Councillor Glenn Bluff. As Councillor Blackham has submitted his apologies for today's meeting, Mayor Jones will respond in his absence. I will read out the first question from Councillor Nick Allen. Will Peel be permitted to develop over the 1,000 homes on land adjacent to Doncaster Sheffield Airport, despite their failure to maintain operations of the airport? Should these development consents have been granted by the City of Doncaster Council without assurances of a commitment to operate Doncaster DSA in the long term? Ms. Ross Jones, you want to please respond? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question, Councillor Allen. Your question refers to matters which are the responsibility of the Planning Committee, and as such, I can't get involved in. However, what I can say is that each planning application must be decided on its own merits and based on the information provided and in conjunction with the local plan. The Planning Committee will consider any such applications through the usual process. For any further information, I would suggest that you put in writing to Councillor Phil Cole, whose portfolio includes planning. Thank you.
Councillor Allen, you may ask a supplementary question if you wish. Can I remind you that all councillors that ask a supplementary question, that it must arise directly out of the original question or the reply. Thank you. Councillor Allen? Thank you. I shall now read out the second question from Councillor Jane Cox. In order for mass market flights and holidays to operate from DSA in the summer 2026, as the Mayor has promised, those holidays would be put on sale in May, just 14 weeks from today and 15 weeks prior to local government elections. Does the Mayor believe mass market holiday flights will be on sale for the public to see and book before the local elections? Mayor Rose-Jones, do you want to reply?
And thank you for your question, Councillor Clocks. What I have said that we plan to see passenger flights return in spring 2026, once we have agreed the financial, contractual and mobilisation arrangements. It will be up to the airlines and travel agents to market their flights and holidays. Thank you.
Councillor Cox, do you wish to respond?
When will this agreement be reached, as unless they are advertised prior to April 25, the slots will have been lost and cannot be advertised for summer 2026?
Do you wish to respond, Mayor Jones?
I refer to my early response in that it will be up to airlines and travel agents to market their flights and holidays. Thank you.
I shall now read out a third question from Councillor Steve Cox. Can the Mayor clarify that there will be no interest or administrative cost to be paid to South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority for the advance use of Doncaster gain share money that she will be using to reopen Doncaster Airport? If there is interest, at what percentage rate? And if there is an administrative cost, how much is this fee? Mayor Rose-Jones, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question, Councillor Cox. I can confirm that there will be no interest or administrative costs to be paid to South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority for the advance use of our gain share. Thank you.
Councillor Cox, do you wish to respond?
Sorry, Chair, I thought you were going to tell me it has to connect with a question that's originally been asked. But thank you. And it is. It's part 2.30 of the report states that 2% interest rate to be paid. Who is it paid to?
Can you repeat that again? What are you talking about, 2% interest? What I can confirm is that we will not be paying any administrative costs or interest to the MCA.
My question is, off of the back of that, is point 2.30 of the report that's out there now in general circulation states 2% interest rate to be paid. Who is it paid to?
Can we ask what report you're referring to?
The airport report that was published yesterday regarding its funding.
The subsidy control. You're aware of the report it's referring to?
It's not letting me. Thank you. You're talking about the subsidy control report. We've actually answered the questions in there, and further reports will be coming to full council in due course that will actually explain everything further. Thank you.
I mean, you've asked your supplementary and have been given an answer to it. I think further information can be provided outside of it.
Thank you. I will now read the fourth question from Councillor Laura Bluff. As the people of Doncaster will forfeit their devolved fund settlement in excess of 100 million in order for the City of Doncaster Council to finance DSA, will the Mayor confirm if the new airport operator will be committed for the long term and what level of private sector investment our 100 million will be matched by the private sector airport operator or investor. Mayor Ross-Jones, would you wish to respond?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Bubb. I can confirm that the airport operator will be committed for long term. In relation to the other elements of your question, details will be included within the report that is due to go through this Council's decision-making process in due course. Thank you.
Councillor Bluff, do you wish to ask a supplementary question? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mayor. Can we have a timeline on in due course? Because it would be helpful to know when that report is going to be available for scrutiny, because it just seems to be veiled in secrecy.
Mayor Ross-Jones, do you wish to respond?
The final report will be coming to full council, and I believe you've been made aware, and there are certain scrutiny dates that will actually be out there so that you can use those. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I will now move on to the final question from Councillor Glenn Bluff, which will be answered by Mayor Ross-Jones. Given the amount of money being spent by Simca on the Sheffield trams, can we have reassurances that the promised and urgently needed bypass for Ickleton and Marlborough will be funded by Simca to ensure Doncaster gets its fair share of the regional transport funding that was announced by the previous Prime Minister? Mayor Jones, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Bluff. You're referring to Network North announcement made by the former Prime Minister, which would not be regional funding or managed by Simca. They would actually be a major road network scheme and as such funded nationally. As per the announcement by Rishi Sunak in 2023, Network North pledged to launch a new £1 billion roads fund to fund new schemes such as the A1, A19, Ickleton bypass. Upon further discussions with officials following this announcement, it became apparent that the previous government did not realise that the A1, A19 link and the Ickleton bypass were actually two separate schemes, nor did they realise that the estimated cost of delivering both schemes would be in excess of 260 million. What has become apparent since the new Labour government took office is that the previous Conservative government made numerous announcements with no idea of how they would deliver them or if the funding was actually available. We are making representations and hoping that both the Ickleton bypass and the A1, A19 link will form part of round 2 of the Major Road Network Funding Programme, which was put on hold in May last year by the previous government. This new government is now undertaking a spending review due to conclude by the summer, and around the same time we expect to see published a 10-year national infrastructure strategy, including round 2 of the Major Roads Network funding. I will continue to lobby for both the A1, A19 link and a bypass for Ickleton. If you have any further supplementary questions, however, please put them in writing to Councillor Joe Blackham, whose portfolio holder includes highways. Thank you.
Right, is that okay, supplementary questions to go to Councillor Joe Blackham? Thank you. Now, before we move on to questions without notice, can I just add Councillor Dave Shaw sent his apologies? Can we just add that to the notes? Thank you. Right, so moving on to questions without notice. Right, are there any questions to, if you can indicate on your console, if there's any questions to Mayor Ross-Jones? Councillor Noon.
Thank you. The Labour Party manifesto committed to 5 national missions. Number 1 was break down barriers to opportunity, delivering reliable, affordable and accessible transport. It is vital in helping people to access opportunities through work and education. Number 5 were ensuring reliable, affordable, accessible transport which works for passengers. Where does Ascot train station come in the Mayor's plans for South Yorkshire travel when all the money is going towards the trams and the airport? The government has decided that local transport is governed by, in our case, Simca and Mayor Coppard. With the Restoring Your Railway fund scrapped by this Labour government, The business case study has proven that Asken Station is a quick win scheme with very little capital expenditure. Will the Council and Mayor make this a priority for Doncaster North and Norton and Asken Ward, as we currently don't have access to reliable, affordable nor accessible transport? Even the active transport doesn't stretch out to Norton and Asken Ward.
Mayor Jones, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Chair. I will continue to push for the Asken Station to be reopened. I will continue pushing all the way. As far as applying Doncaster Council's gain share for the reopening of the airport, that I honestly believe will be the jewel in the crown medium to long term and be the best economic stimulus Doncaster, South Yorkshire and wider areas can have.
Do you wish to ask a supplementary question, Tommy?
For the last 20, 25, 30 years, where I've been told in scrutiny meetings that the mass investment has gone into the south of the borough and Doncaster North has been forgotten about. I hope tying us into this massive airport contract doesn't forget the north even longer. Thank you.
If you actually look, a lot of investment has gone into Doncaster North, and I'll simply cite two things. Look at what we're doing and look what we've done in respect of the leisure centres. Most local authorities have actually passed leisure centres over. We've invested and continue to invest in Asken, also in Adwick, and they're two in Doncaster North. We will always continue to invest. We've also invested funding, and you'll see in the capital programme, where we've invested funding in Asken Lake, which you're asking questions about. So we will continue to push. But I'm here for the Mayor of the whole of Doncaster, not just for Asken, and we will seek to do our best for every area we can. Thank you.
Councillor Glanville.
Thanks very much, Chair. Earlier on, we discussed about the funding for the Hickleton bypass and Network North. But this is my question to you as Mayor. I've repeatedly asked about this over the last 4 years and been given reassurances about the overall scheme for the bypass. I've been told on several occasions that the A1A19 link part of the bypass helped give the overall case for the whole bypass across Hickleton, gave it the economic feasibility to be built. However, it's now being referred to as two schemes. At no point in the last 4 years has it ever been referred to as two schemes. So when did it become two schemes?
It has always been two schemes, but we've worked together to make it one in order to ensure that we can make the best case in order to bring funding here. But it is not through Simca, it will be through a national scheme because of the amount of monies that it will take to actually do the roads. I support it as much as you do.
Councillor Jane Cox. Sorry, I've got my timelines wrong. Did you want to ask a supplementary?
Can I have a reply?
You can ask a supplementary.
Yeah. So supplementary, if national government doesn't give you the funding for Hickleton to safeguard the air quality in Hickleton and the residents there, will you lobby Mayor Coppard for the funding to come from Simca from his devolved powers?
I will lobby every appropriate way I can to actually seek funding coming into Doncaster. That includes all schemes.
Apologies for that, Councillor Bluff. I've missed that. Councillor Jane Cox, did you want to ask your question?
Thank you. The Mayor has previously informed members that the airport was viable and will break even within 5 years. The Subster report points to 2 unviable tenders and an airport that may need 50 years to repay the loan that we're giving the operator and won't begin repayments until year 11 at the best. What safeguards are there for the Doncaster taxpayer for a business case that doesn't meet the Treasury financial business case requirements?
The business case that goes forward, I don't believe it said break even in 5 years. The safeguards will be there are break clauses in the lease, and we'll actually ensure that we adhere to them.
Would you like to ask a supplementary question?
So the reports that we've looked at previously have been inaccurate then?
What's put forward at that point in time, what I've always said about the business case going forward for Doncaster Sheffield Airport is that it will bring in excess of 5,000 jobs to the area. It will bring enormous growth in the GVA, and it will also drive the economy forward. And it will be the biggest investment spent here in Doncaster over a decade or more.
Councillor Noon, you've already submitted a question you can't submit to that, Mayor Ross-Jones. Have you just, you wanting to indicate to ask a question? Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you. It's a very quick one. I have asked it many, many times. What happened to the £20 million for the airport?
I've answered you many, many times, and therefore I would advise you to look back and see the response. And that is, when I was chair of one of the committees, we approved it. It then went into the MCA, and of course they seek assurances. And so it was the MCA that actually moved it forward. But the £20 million was still there that Peel could have picked up and take over when the offer was there to fund keeping the airport open.
Wish to ask a supplementary.
Is it right, and it might be assumption and wanting clarity, that given the £20 million wasn't obviously taken up by Peel, let's say, the assumption was that the money was to be used on a terminal to finish the terminal. The terminal then would have brought the footfall in that would have kept the airport open and kept the airlines there. In not gaining that loan at that time, for whatever reason, do you believe that played any contribution in it closing in the first place?
I cannot actually judge what decisions Peel make. They are a private company and they will make their own decisions.
Has anybody got any questions for Councillor Glyn-Jones? Councillor Bluff.
Sorry, Chair. Just a question about procedure for the questions. The last two full councils I've attended, I may have missed the question, but at what point can we ask questions to Damien Allen? I think I've missed it the last two times, and I've had the same question on my paper. Is it the beginning of this question time or at the end?
There is no question. Sometimes we defer it to him to answer, but we don't do direct questions. Or I'm not aware. And what's your opinion? Let him do it first.
There's no opportunity to ask questions of Chief Executive at Council, and never has been. Questions are for elected members, executive members and members of committees. Damien makes announcements. He will occasionally be asked to answer a question if it veers into matters for head of paid service. But other than that, do you want to use your button, Councillor Jones? It helps the system.
Can I just... Do you want to add something about when you are happy to be asked questions, or whatever the procedure is to be asked questions from you? A question to Damien, because if it is no.
Next question to you.
Oh, okay, go on.
Can you ask the executive if under 1811H of the procedures in council that this particular aspect applies?
Under 11?
Under the Constitution procedure rules, 1811H, is it possible that you can ask questions on this issue?
You have me at a loss, Councillor Jones. My 1811H says something rather different. Do you want to read out what yours says?
Anyway, I've checked the procedures.
Mine refers to information which is excluded from the access of information procedure rules, so yours must be rather different.
Yeah, but
I'm happy to pick it up outside the meeting if that helps in future.
And press which enable the executive to answer questions considered to be financially confidential. That's one of the exclusions of the press. But it also says that that is part of it, not necessarily just the confidentiality part for financial purposes.
Would you mind seeing me outside? Because I'm a little bit lost, if I'm honest. It's probably me, but I'm sure it'd help both of us if we dealt with it outside.
How we actually interpret what's been written down.
I didn't mean that to sound like I was the head teacher. I do apologise.
Right, we're going to move on from that then.
To ask about the executive and officers and about the way in which decisions are made by officers. Should that be, which cabinet member should that be reflected to?
It depends on what it's about, doesn't it? If it's like is it about procedures or about individuals? Or
Well, the thing is, I think it falls in a number of different areas, Councillor Calls and others. So I thought it was best placed with Damien Allen, but I thought that about 9 months ago, and I've been waiting.
But I'm going to let you speak this once.
It's just like I always end up asking Councillor Call. And
if I may, Councillor Bluff, there is nothing in the standing orders, as has been pointed out, where there are direct questions to the Chief Executive. Just feeding back to Councillor Jones, when he was referencing executive, it's unclear whether he's talking about the executive of the council, which I'm not, or the chief executive of the council and the head of paid service, which I am. Where there are questions to the executive, i.e. the mayor and her cabinet, those are questions posed by members. Occasionally, as has been already pointed out, where there is a requirement to defer to me because they are matters that are delegated in the Constitution to the head of paid services, for instance, relating to employment matters or other procedures, then I may be called to answer on them. Equally, coming back to your last point, Councillor Bluff, if there are questions that you wish to ask me at any time, any member outside this chamber is free to communicate with me, and I think they will note I'm fairly responsive. Thank you.
Right, so I am moving on now. Any questions to Councillor Laney Mayball? No? Any questions to Councillor Nigel Ball? No. Any questions to Councillor Joe Blackham? Please put these in writing to the Executive Office. Any questions for Councillor Phil Cowell? Yes. Councillor Noon.
Thank you. Who's going to pay? So we'd not find a provider who wants to invest and get in the private investment. Who's going to pay the master lease appeal? What company? Is it the subsidiary? Is it the council? Where does that money come from to pay for appeal?
Councillor Cole, do you wish to reply or defer it to somebody else to reply?
Yeah, I don't believe this is a question in the first instance directed at me. I think it's about the arrangements the council are making in relation to the airport, which the mayor has answered several questions on, and should be, I guess, directed at the mayor.
Mayor Jones, are you wishing to respond with that? I didn't know if that's what you were indicating. Or did you want one of these two to pick it up?
You've been given all the responses in respect of the airport, and further reports will be coming not only to full council but to overview and scrutiny, which will identify everything that you're asking. But what you're asking is things that's not been fully agreed as yet, and therefore you've been given the most up-to-date information we can. Thank you.
I am going to move on from that question. So, Councillor Bluff, did you wish to ask Councillor Cole a question?
Unbelievable. Thanks very much. Councillor Cole, just a question I think belongs with you. Please feel free to direct it to Damien. But some time back, we had a discussion about a development in Harlington within our ward, where there was a discussion about the 106 money. And we, certainly myself and Cynthia Ransom as ward councillors, were not included in the conversations about what happened with the 106 money. We felt that seemed unfair. I understand that in 2015 this was picked up in a scrutiny report about ward councillors being involved in the decisions about what happens with 106 money. Can you confirm, should our ward councillors to be included, and should they have been included in the decisions regarding what happens with 106 money? I just want a confirmation.
So, Chair, forgive me for not commenting directly on the case that you've cited. I will look at that for you. But we've had a review of how Section 106 monies are distributed and for the particular purposes that they're set aside at the time the application is approved. And in my experience, and I've only been in this portfolio for a short time, but we always include the ward councillors in a dialogue over the use of that money, and we have that discussion with officers. It's always been my intention that we seek consensus over that, and also it's always been the council's general policy that where funds are set aside to mitigate the effects of a planning application, that the first beneficiaries of that should be the people whose lives are most affected by that planning application, where sometimes it is not possible in the immediate environment to satisfy a particular objective of Section 106 funding, then sometimes that money is used more widely for related purposes. But I will look into that instance for you. If you just ping me a short email with the details, I will look into it and get back to you. Thank you very much.
Right, are you wanting to ask a supplementary to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Councillor Cole. And just on that note, and I will ping you the details, in Harlington and Barnborough at the moment, we have a wonderful footpath which was upgraded just a couple of years ago, going out to Mexborough. It's absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend anybody goes and walks it. But unfortunately, there was a fire set on the bridge there. Could you look in to see whether it would be possible? I know the 106 money from the development next door has not been spent yet. Could you please look in to see if that could be used to help fund the bridge to Mexborough? Because we'd like it back.
So, I mean, do forgive me, but amid the 88 settlements that we have in the whole of Doncaster and all of the planning applications and Section 106 agreements in all of those over several years, forgive me if I'm a little bit vague on the details that you've described. So I promise I will look into it and I will get back to you.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
Thank you. Councillor Cole. You've just mentioned there that there's been a review on 106. Firstly, when was it? What we've seen, and it is, Councillor Bluff's right, 2015, in a meeting that was chaired by Councillor Mousey, the recommendation was that all elected members are involved in 106 discussions. 106 is a wider thing, obviously, you're aware, and it contributes to many different parcels within that development. What I'd like to know is when was that decision made to take away the bus contribution to Warren Park in our ward? Because when they've gone to look at that, it has gone. There's no financial contribution for a bus provider to go into that estate anymore. And you'll know that every single 106 has a bus contribution, same as they have an education contribution, which again was lost due to the 106 running out. So can you tell me when that review was had and where those residents' bus service gone?
So just to be clear, and for the benefit of all of the members in this room, neither the Mayor nor the Executive play any part in the decision-making in relation to planning applications. But Section 106 balances that are contributions from the developer to meet particular, to mitigate particular effects of developments or contribute to education provision because of the demand that will be created by new housing development, so on. Those obviously balances finish up sitting with the authority. And historically, every local authority finishes up with certain balances which after a certain number of years may not have been fully spent. And the review that we have undertaken is to make sure that we efficiently and fairly distribute the balances of those funds. And wherever that relates to a specific local development, it would be my intention to make sure that we involve the councillors in that process. But some of these are very old. Mayor, I believe you've been in considerable correspondence going back quite some time over Warren Park and the particular agreements that were made. That development occurred, if I remember, something like 2008 to 2012 kind of period. And there was, for example, an agreement at that time, I believe, and correct me if I've got any of this wrong, that upon the full completion of all the roads on that estate, a new bus route would be put around that estate and provision for it. And unfortunately, the road was never 100% completed. And for some reason, therefore, the developer was never under any obligation to provide the bus service. If I'm wrong on that, I will issue a correction to you. But I'm happy to look into that. But I do believe that you have fully investigated that, and I've been party to that correspondence with officers over Warren Park and exactly what agreements were made at the time and which of them could be legally enforced by the council as late as, you know, the last few years. So, I mean, forgive me for not getting into that development in great detail, but I'm happy to look into that for you.
Yeah, you want to ask a supplementary, yeah?
Thank you. Thank you for your response. I mean, obviously, as you've said, a review was taken to see, obviously, how much money's left in that pot. And obviously, again, it's cost the authority a lot of money and other pots to do an extension on the primary school that's just over. Now, given that there is funding, obviously, left in that pot, why can it not go back to Warren Park? Why can it not go back to that estate to give them the facilities that they want, that were in their original 106 document? I am completely lost at this, given that all of us in here will have a 106 contribution within our wards, and we took it to John Mousing when he was chair. We all have the same information, but we have not been privy to any of those until we found out that it were all going wrong.
All I can say is that we applied the same approach to dealing with outstanding Section 106 monies from that development as we do for any other planning application in the borough. I will look into that for you. I will gladly make sure that myself or a senior officer replies to you with all the detail that you need in that. And then if you want to meet and talk about it, happy to do so.
Councillor John Mounsey.
What Councillor Steve Cox says is quite correct. I was chair Scrutiny for a number of years.
Sorry, are you asking Councillor Cole a question?
Yes, just a point of information, Chair, that it was passed at a Scrutiny meeting that local members involved in any housing development that come up with a 106 donation will be discussed with all the relevant council members at all times. That was the fact, Chair. Thank you.
I'm guessing that weren't a question and there's no response. Anything you want to acknowledge there?
I think Councillor Mounsey is simply saying that his recollection is that the appropriate 106 agreements related to that planning application were discussed with the ward members at the time, and I'm sure subsequently.
Right, we need to move on because it were actually a question. I appreciate. Right, we'll strike what. That's not what you said, Councillor Cowell. So we need to, but it wasn't a question. So we're going to move on. Has anybody got any questions for Councillor Sue Farmer? Has anybody got any questions for Councillor Mark Holbrook?
No. Oh yes,
Councillor Bluff.
Yeah, thanks very much. It was more of giving a bit of praise to Councillor Holbrook for the trees initiative, because I know he's pursued it quite well, and thank you for the 1,000 trees that we've had, which I've planted in our ward. So thanks very much. I just wanted to.
Would you like to respond there, Councillor Holbrook?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bluff. Obviously, in recognition of the Mayor's pledge since 2001, and we're making great progress with the tree planting in Doncaster, and thank you very much for that comment.
Right. Councillor Alan Jones.
Councillor Holbrook for the opportunity to collect 50 saplings at Kirksandall for the allotment at Strawberry. Thank you.
Are you wishing to come back, Councillor Holbrook?
Thank you very much. It's a testament again, as I stated in the previous question, of obviously the Mayor's pledge to reach 1 million trees in 10 years. But yes, thank you for those comments. Obviously, we're doing something good. Thank you.
Councillor Nightingale, any questions for Councillor Nightingale? Any questions for Councillor Sarah Smith? Right, elected members may now put questions to the chairs of committees. Are there any questions to Councillor Austin White? If you can do that in writing, that can be submitted in writing. Is there any questions for Councillor Muddyman Rawlins, the Chair of Elections and Democratic Structures Committee? Right, the Chair of Health and Wellbeing Board, Councillor Nigel Ball? No. The Chair of OMSC, Councillor Jane Kidd? No. Right, item 12, minutes of the joint authorities. These minutes are for information and not for endorsement. Does any member wish to speak on this item? No, Chair. No? Everybody's twittering and I don't know if you indicate no or not. Can I ask the members to move the minutes before they carry on packing the bags? Is that noted? Right. Members, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's business at today's meeting, and I declare the meeting closed.